Hey, what is up, everybody? I'm here to give you another episode of the Retro Wrestling Review Series, Season 8, Episode 4. And I'm going to try, because I know I'm behind on these because I've just been busy, I'm just going to upload a ton of these today because I know I have to get to the NXT. I have to finish the NXT Review Series, and then I have to watch Backlash, do all the series for that. So I'm going to try to get that done before May 21st. But I'm here now to give you my review for NXT Takeover All Evolution. And in my opinion, I love this show. I'll just say that right now. I think I always was a fan of NXT. But I think this show really made NXT a great product. I always thought it was good anyways. But I think this is when NXT started to become a huge thing. Was on this show right here. This show is spectacular. When I watched it at the time, I really enjoyed it. And I've always enjoyed, and you know, it has a lot of cool moments on this show. So I think this is a great episode. A great takeover. And I'll tell you why when I get that far into the video. But let's talk about the matches on this show. But you know, the way I'm going to structure this review is like normal. I'm going to review the preview and all in one take, the pre-show all in one take, and then when I actually review the show itself, I'm going to review it in different takes after each match or segment. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Let's talk about what the matches are going to be on this show, though. I'll just say what type of match it is and stuff, and then when it actually addresses the matches, I will say what they are. Okay, so we have two singles matches on this show. We have a NXT Tag Team Championship match. We have a regular tag team match on the show, an NXT Women's Championship match, and an NXT Championship match. And if you look at this show, the card looks really solid on paper. So let's not waste any time and just get right into talking about this show. Alright, so then we had the NXT preview show itself, previewing this show, and we had the hostess, Renee Young, and obviously Renee Young did a very good job hosting the show. Since then, she's gone on to be the host of the pre-shows for, at first it was both the NXT special pre-shows and the WWE mainstream pay-per-view pre-shows. But now she just does the WWE mainstream pre-shows, and she also hosts Talk It Smack and Raw Talk, and now she's gone on to become a cast member of Total Divas, which I always forget about because I don't watch that show. Yeah, that's so Renee Young's definitely doing very well for herself. And before I actually start talking about the actual matches and stuff on the like the build-up and stuff, let me actually address what the matches are on this show. We have a match between Kevin Owens and CJ Parker. We have an NXT Tag Team Championship match. NXT Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Dragons versus the Vaudevillians. We have a match between Baron Corbin and Ty Dillinger. We have a tag team match between Finn Balor and Hideo Itami taking on the team of the Ascension. We have an NXT Women's Championship match. NXT Women's Champion Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. And then we have the main event title versus career match. Sami Zayn's career versus Adrian Neville's NXT Championship. And yeah, you have some really show-stealing matches on this show. Like, this show on paper looked really good, and the build-up's even better on this show, so I'm going to talk about it. We have the build-up for the NXT Championship match I'm going to talk about first, because that's the first thing that was discussed. And this is a long one. So, obviously, for these past few episodes, I've been talking about Sami Zayn's road of getting to the NXT Championship. That was kind of the main focus on these first few episodes of the NXT TakeOver review series, and that's really what it was. Sami Zayn would always be put in these big matches, and he would always come this close to winning, but he wouldn't win. He just was very barely able to get the job done. He would lose, but he would always get closer and closer. And eventually, at NXT Takeover Fatal 4-Way, he was this close to becoming the NXT champion. And Adrian Neville, he was about to win the match, but Adrian Neville pulled the official out of the win, and used that dirty tactic to keep his NXT championship. So then Sami Zayn had enough. He had said that he was going to rectify his wrongs. He was going to go through each of his opponents and finally keep or to help what's the word rebuild his career. So he went through all of his past people that he lost till he beat everybody, and he had finally got himself in position where he could get an NXT Championship match. And then on the November 13th episode of NXT, there was an NXT Championship match between Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn. And Sami Zayn before this had told Adrian Neville to hold that NXT Championship tight around him because he's not going to have it for long. And Adrian Neville said that he's not worried because Sami Zayn just can't win the big one. So, it looked like Sami Zayn was on the verge of becoming the brand new NXT champion. Adrian Neville had missed the red arrow, but his leg ended up giving out. He just wasn't able to walk on it, so Sami Zayn showed concern for his friend. But Adrian Neville used this as an advantage to beat Sami Zayn and retain his NXT championship. And Sami Zayn, had talked about how that was a huge loss because he was right there. He was just about to become the new NXT champion. So Sami Zayn had been really disappointed about that loss. Sami Zayn requested that Adrian Neville give him one final match for the NXT Championship if they really are friends, because that was the whole purpose behind this match too, was Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn at one point were both friends. And Sami Zayn says that if he can't beat Adrian Neville, he's done. He doesn't know what he is here for anymore. He's not going to wrestle. He's done with wrestling. He's going to retire. So that was kind of the set off with this match. And this match, you could just feel was so personal for Sami Zayn because he really needed this victory. But Adrian Neville was the dominant NXT champion. He had won the NXT championship back in February of 2014 at NXT Arrival, and he had held it all the way to now. I believe he had gone on. He was the longest reigning NXT champion at that time. And then Adrian Neville talks about how he doesn't want to see his friends fail, but he wants to continue to stay the NXT champion. And Adrian Neville says that he doesn't want to be the reason that Sami Zayn, that he ended Sami Zayn's dream. So Adrian Neville says that whatever you do after the match is on your terms, not my terms. And he shows to shake his hand, and then Sami Zayn says that he's not going to do that. To him, it's not about respect, because he always does that, and then he ends up losing. And he said that he can't take any chances. He slapped Adrian Neville across the face. He's like, do you understand that? I'm going in there to win the NXT title. And then that was it. That was the build-off. That was the send-off of this feud. And this feud was obviously phenomenal. You were definitely feeling that they were going to finally end the storyline of Sami Zayn chasing after that NXT title. But you also had Adrian Neville, who was the NXT champion. So this feud worked perfectly. And this was the first time we got to see a little bit of heel Adrian Neville. And it was awesome. Adrian Neville had been, he wasn't really a heel, but they had him be a heel in this situation because obviously Sami Zayn was going to be the big babyface coming into this match. So it was interesting. So that match was probably the best built-up match on the show, but there's other matches that I liked on the show. We had the build-up to the Kevin Owens CJ Parker match. Obviously, CJ Parker really wasn't much of a factor in this match, but Kevin Owens was a huge star in the indie scene, and he was finally coming to NXT, and he even has a little video package talking about how he's been all over the world, and he's wrestled some of the best of them. He talked about how he wrestled Seth Rollins, but yet he's the one that got called up first, and it shows Seth Rollins winning the Money in the Bank ladder match, being the first ever NXT champion. He talked about how he tag teamed with Daniel Bryan. But yeah, he still got caught up first, and so is Daniel Bryan, winning the United States title and the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 30. He talked about how he ended up wrestling Adrian Neville in the while he was in the UK, and then it shows Adrian Neville winning the NXT Championship at NXT Arrival, and then he talks about how he traveled the road for years with Sami Zayn, and it shows Sami Zayn in NXT because he hadn't won the title yet. And he said, but now it's my turn. You get to see what I'm capable of. And he said that he doesn't have any plan Bs. This is what he wants to do. So obviously Kevin Owens was coming in, and you knew he was instantly going to be a heel by the way the video package was, and it was awesome. Then we had the build up to the NXT Women's Championship match. And it was between Charlotte and Sasha Banks. And, these two women were obviously two of the four horsewomen in NXT. Everybody likes to talk about. But Charlotte and Sasha Banks, who also used to be best friends, they were in the faction called the BFFs. And, they were heels. They pretty much ran the NXT Women's Division by storm. Then eventually they kind of started to tease dissension once Charlotte had won the NXT Women's Championship at NXT TakeOver. And eventually Charlotte and Sasha Banks ended up splitting up. And Sasha Banks wanted to get her hands on that NXT Women's Championship. She had done all the dirty things. She was the big heel of the women's division in NXT at the time. They used to have that chant, Sasha's rat shit. No, she's not. I used to love that chant. And this was like, when Sasha Banks was awesome. She still is, but, now that she's kind of face, it kind of takes away what made Sasha Banks so great in NXT. So then, Sasha Banks, after Charlotte had successfully defended her NXT Women's Championship and NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way against Bayley, had attacked Bayley, and at this point Charlotte was a heel, and then Charlotte ended up saving Bayley, turning her babyface in the process, and that kind of started the tension between Sasha Banks and Charlotte. Sasha Banks took out Bayley for being able to be the number one contender. She ended up having Becky Lynch, who was the newcomer in NXT at the time, join forces with her, and they ran roughshod in NXT. And then eventually, somehow, Sasha Banks became the number one contender to the NXT Women's Championship. Then, what else? So, Sasha Banks even would continuously talk about how she taught everything. She didn't teach everything that Sasha Banks knows, and she wanted the NXT Women's title around her waist. She would lay out Charlotte on the Go Home Show episode of NXT. So it was definitely a really interesting feud. It was two great women who great characters competed against each other, and I enjoyed that feud. Charlotte talked about how she was genetically superior, and Sasha Banks talked about how she taught everything that Sasha knows, but not everything that not everything she knows. So I really enjoyed this feud, and I was really looking forward to this match at the time. And I still am looking forward to watching it again. Then we had the build-up to the Baron Corbin Ty Dillinger match. Pretty much it's just one of the things that Baron Corbin did is he came into NXT at NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. That was his first match, even though he had wrestled before as enhancement talent. But that was his big debut match. And Baron Corbin had this thing where he would wrestle people, and the fans would count down how long his matches would be, and he just wrestled all squash matches, so they just wanted to make him look impressive, so they showed a video package for him. Ty Dillinger was somebody that was kind of enhancement talent at this time, but eventually, obviously, we know what happened to Ty Dillinger, and I'll talk about that when I get to that match. Then we have the build-up to the two tag team matches on this show, and then that will be it. We have the build, so I'm just going to talk about what happened, and then I'll just kind of segue into how both matches came about. So at NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way, the Lucha Dragons defeated the Ascension for the NXT Tag Team Championships, and the Lucha Dragons ended the Ascension's long reign as NXT Tag Team Champions. So the Ascension reacted because they attacked debut and Superstar that same night at NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way. they attacked new superstar Hideo Itami. Hideo Itami had been signed in. He got a huge sign-in. Everybody saw huge things in Hideo Itami. He was he got his contract by Hulk Hogan and the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. So that if that's not saying that they wanted to do something big with them, I don't know what is. And they tried to take out Hideo Itami, but Hideo Itami was able to take out the Ascension. And they kept these, and the Ascension and Hideo Itami kept going back and forth with each other. The Ascension wrecked Hideo Itami the next week. Hideo Itami cost the Ascension their NXT Tag Team Championships on a couple of occasions. One in their actual rematch, and another in a NXT Tag Team Championship #1 Contenders Battle Royal, and he caused them to get eliminated. So the Ascension reacted by taking out Hideo Itami's mentor, Funaki, and eventually the Ascension just kept beating down Hideo Itami week after week. So Hideo Itami got sick of it, and he said that if you want, you want to fight, I'm going to bring some backup. So the backup that Hideo Itami ended up winning was none other than the debut of Finn Balor. Finn Balor was a huge star in Japan. He wrestled all over the world, won championships. And he was coming into NXT. This is when NXT was starting to bring in the huge indie stars, the Sami Zayns, the Adrian Nevilles, the Finn Balors, and the Hideo Itami, and then eventually, obviously, the Kevin Owens. And Finn Balor and Hideo Itami completely took out the Ascension. And then Finn Balor had cut a promo the next week talking about how the Ascension was going to experience something that they have never seen before. And obviously they had that big brawl in at the end where Finn Balor and Itami took out the Ascension. And obviously they were pushing Itami and Balor in a decent spot. They were showcasing him as a team first. And they had him go up against the longest reigning NXT champions, or NXT Tag Team Champions in NXT history. So that was impressive. Even though I don't really like the Ascension, but still, it was a decently big spot for Hideo Itami and Finn Balor. And obviously, then on the other side of the fence, the other tag team match on the show was going to be the NXT tag title match between the Lucha Dragons and the Vaudevillians. The Vaudevillians became a tag team. I believe like in early 2014, and the Lucha Dragons became a tag team shortly afterwards. The Lucha Dragons, the first night, defeated the Vaudevillians in a match, and then the Lucha Dragons also defeated the Vaudevillians in the NXT Tag Team Championships #1 Contenders Tournament Finals. And after the Lucha Dragons won the NXT Tag Team titles, the Vaudevillians ended up winning the NXT Tag Team Championship #1 Contenders Battle Royal, and the Vaudevillians were going to go after the Lucha Dragons for the NXT Tag Team Championships. This was a huge match at the time. They even brought this up that the Vaudevillians, the only team that was ever able to beat them, was the Lucha Dragons. They even did comedy skits where they would have the Vaudevillians absolutely destroy the Lucha Dragons, and just funny comedy skits, because at the time they were like a throwback type of tag team where they would wrestle in the black and white, and they would have they would also have the movie show like a silent movie, come out to old classic music, and it was pretty awesome. And the Lucha Dragons were the luchador high-flying tag team, so this feud didn't really have a lot of purpose behind it, but it had some purpose behind it. And that's pretty much the build-up to all the matches. And at least every match had some type of story for happening, and every match was at least somewhat interesting. So that was pretty cool. So overall, the storyline in this show was very good. Now that I've talked about the preview, let me talk about the pre-show of NXT Takeover or Evolution itself. Alright, so next was the actual pre-show itself. We had Renee Young, Jason Albert, and Alex Riley on the panel. And Jason Albert went on eventually to become the head trainer for the Performance Center. So he eventually, I believe this ended up being the last time he ever was on the panel or doing commentary or anything like that. I could be wrong though, because I know it happened in early 2015. And Alex Riley, obviously, it was really sad what happened to him. The WWE really dropped the ball with him. I thought there was some potential in Alex Riley. I didn't think he was like an amazing talent or anything, but it's just a real shame about what happened to Alex Riley. And he ended up being on commentary. He was doing really well on commentary. And then eventually he ended up going back and eventually getting back into the ring because Kevin Owens was disrespecting him, and he ended up losing to Kevin Owens. And then he lost again to Kevin Owens, got taken out by Kevin Owens, ended up being injured in real life, came back in early 2016, and then he was pretty much shortly afterwards released. It was a real shame. So yeah, Jason, the two halves of the so one of the guys on the panel is not in the company anymore. So I don't really know what exactly Alex Riley does now, actually. It says, I just wanted to see, like, I don't know if he's still wrestling on the independents or what. It says, yeah, it says Riley was released from WWE contract along with several other wrestlers on May 6, 2016. It doesn't say anything else that happened to him, so I guess he's, I guess he's done. So, let me get on to the actual show itself, though. We had a Sami Zayn interview, and he talks about how he's putting this pressure on himself because he feels like he needs to, so that way he could finally give himself that much motivation to win the NXT Championship. He talks about how he wants to win the NXT Championship before he gets called up to the main roster. It's just something that he has to accomplish. And then he says that it's not a stipulation in the match that my career is on the line. It's an actual thing. He really did put his career on the line. That was his promo, and I really enjoyed it. And then we had a video package, another one for Kevin Owens, talking about his debut and talking about how he's just going to pretty much dominate everybody. Actually, that's not what was next. What was next actually was Corey Graves' special announcement now. Obviously, a lot of people may not know this. You may or may not, but Corey Graves used to be a professional wrestler. And he talks about how when he was 3 years old, when he used to watch wrestling with his dad, and he instantly wanted to be a professional wrestler. He wanted to get into the WWE, and he wrestled all over the world in the independents, and then WWE finally made his dream come true when they signed him a few years ago. But then he says that he's had some minor concussions, and the WWE doctors have been examining him, and they've suggested that he retires from the ring, so he announces that he has to retire. Which was really sad to see that happen to Corey Graves, because he was in that original crew of NXT superstars like Sami Zayn, Adrian, Neville. And he was even in the NXT back when it was FCW, which stood for Florida Championship Wrestling. Corey Graves had been there for a while, and it's a real shame that he ended up having to retire. He was even there, during Seth Rollins' first run with the NXT Championship. So it was a shame that Corey Graves ended up having to retire. But then he announces that, that WWE's found other ways he can be a part of the WWE. And he said that he announces that from now on he's going to be doing commentary for NXT, which was a brilliant move, because now he's one of my favorite because now he's the best commentator in the WWE right now. But yeah, it's a real shame that he ended up having to retire, and it was really emotional. And then there was the Kevin Owens video package, and then the Lucha Dragons get interviewed, and they get interviewed by Rich Brennan, and Rich Brennan asks them how they are preparing for the NXT Tag Team Championship match tonight. And Kalisto actually is the one that does the speaking, and Kalisto says that a lot of people think that they are jokes, but they're not jokes. And and he said that Lucha stands for fighting, and he said that they're gonna fight back as much as they can and keep their NXT Tag Team Championships. I thought Kalisto cut a solid promo. And then Alex Riley interviews Sasha Banks, and Alex Riley asked her if that some people, what a reaction is that some people think that she's the underdog going into this NXT Women's Championship match tonight with Charlotte. And Sasha Banks like, who exactly thinks I'm an underdog? Is it the fans? Is it Bayley? And Bayley comes up and says that she can't beat Charlotte. She's naturally superior. And Sasha Banks says, it's going to be a real throw that her father is going to have to watch her lose the NXT Women's Championship tonight. And then Becky Lynch attacks Bayley from behind and goes to take out her knee. But Sasha Banks is like, no, we got bigger things to do tonight. And then they leave. And I forgot to mention too that Corey Graves ended up staying on the panel for the rest of the pre-show. And he announced that he's going to be making his debut on commentary for the night. But yeah, obviously the aftermath came of this. So I believe Becky Lynch and Bayley went on to have like a match on NXT or something, and where one of them won. And this was building up to. I'll talk about that though. What it was building up to later on in the show. Then we had the final interview of the night is Adrian Neville, and he talks about how he's tried to get Sami Zayn countless times to back out of putting his career on the line, but he just won't do it. And he talks about how he has to also focus about his career because he feels like he's at the top of his game and he's not really ready to give up his spot in NXT. And then that was it. Overall, I thought the pre-show was actually pretty good. What I'm obviously going to remember about it is that emotional moment when Corey Graves ended up having to retire from NXT. But I like the Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville interviews, Sasha Banks' interview, and then what they did with Bayley. So overall, a pretty enjoyable pre-show. And I like that it's outside. It makes the pre-show feel different. So I like that it's outside. Keep doing pre-shows outside because it actually makes it more interactive. Okay, so we had the actual show itself. We had Corey Graves, Rich Brennan, and Alex Riley on commentary. Obviously, Rich Brennan was a great he was a good commentator. I enjoyed hearing him on commentary, but, obviously, WWE would rather keep someone that is bland on commentary than someone that's actually paid his dues and actually knows what he's talking about. But I'm not going to really talk about that too much, because obviously what I'm saying is Rich Brennan was fired. But we had the first match on the show. They kicked off right away with the debut of Kevin Owens. And he instantly got a reaction when he came out. The plates went nuts for him. And something that I've always liked about the NXT crowd, I've always liked it, but now I kind of hate it, but is at least though all crowds always are engaged with these specials. I've noticed that watching these past 3 specials. And now this would be the 4th one, is that that NXT crowd definitely reacts to everything. That's also a problem too, because if you're reacting to everything, then that kind of diminishes when something is just good. So I feel like the NXT crowd kind of ruined that even for the business today. But yeah, Kevin Owens came out and he, I think was nervous, and I definitely think he was happy to be here. I think if he was kind of like it was like it wasn't real to him either. So, but he wrestles CJ Polka, and CJ Polka comes out, and Kevin Owens' thing was, this was when he had the catchphrase "Fight Owens, fight," and CJ Polka comes out and had a sign that said "My fight matters," which I thought was pretty cool. And the match instantly kicks off. Kevin Owens hits a couple of clotheslines in the corner. He hits the cannonball in the corner, and the place went nuts when that happened. And then Kevin Owens hits a flip dive over the top rope. And he even says that I'm here. Kevin Owens pretty much dominates CJ Polka, but then CJ Polka hits a heel kick to the face, dominates the matchup for a couple of minutes. Kevin Owens tries to fight back. Polka hits a face palm strike right to the face of Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is able to kick out of it. And this actually ended up breaking Kevin Owens' nose. Yes, in Kevin Owens' first match, his nose ended up breaking, which was, impressive, I guess. And then eventually Kevin Owens hits a suplex into a knee to the head. I don't really know what to call that. And then he hits the pump-up powerbomb for the win. And obviously he wasn't going to do because he had this move where he would do the package pile driver, I believe it's called. And where he would just drive his opponent right down on his head. But obviously he's not gonna be doing that move because it's one of the moves that WWE prevents you from doing. But Kevin Owens obviously came in. He looked really strong and impressive in his debut at NXT. The crowd reacted the whole time. So I was absolutely fine with Kevin Owens being in NXT. That was it's definitely one of the best debuts probably ever in NXT. And I'm going to talk about where Kevin Owens ended up going from this, because this isn't the last we've seen of Kevin Owens. So obviously CJ Parker, I've mentioned this a ton of times, pretty much went on to become a jobber, and he ended up doing nothing and eventually got released in 2015. And I don't know what he does now, actually. CJ Parker, now he wrestles in the indie scene, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Pro Wrestling No and stuff like that. So, but he ended up being released on March 31st, 2015. So, yeah, is what it is, I guess, right? It kind of sucks what happened, like I've talked about. I believe this ended up being his last takeover, so this will be the last time. But pretty much he was a jobber, but they could have done something with his character, but they chose not to, so, yeah. Next match was an NXT Tag Team Championship match. NXT Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Dragons versus the Vaudevillians. I enjoyed this match. I thought it was a good match. The Lucha Dragons dominate the Vaudevillians throughout the first half of the matchup. Kalisto hits a crossbody. Sin Cara hits a Michinoku driver. But eventually the Vaudevillians get the heat on Sin Cara. They beat the crap out of him. And they really get the heat on him. They really work over. Actually, what happens is Sin Cara went for a roll-up, and then Adrian was pulled him out on the floor really aggressively. And then the Vaudevillians dominate Sin Cara. Sin Cara keeps trying to get to his corner. And eventually, Adrian English hits a right hand while he's on the hits a big boot while he's on the apron, and then he ends up pulling Kalisto, and he ends up landing back first on the apron. But Adrian English, well, the Vaudevillians continue to dominate the Lucha Drag, well, Sin Cara. Then eventually Kalisto gets the hot tag on Adrian English, and he hits all of his high flying moves on Adrian English. He even hits a backflip into a kick to the head on him. And then Simon Gauge tries to get in the ring. Sin Cara hits a high cross body on him. And then Kalisto hits a roll-through kick on Adrian English. And then the Lucha Dragons go for a double suicide dive on the Vaudevillians. But Adrian English shoves Simon Gauge out of the way, and they both land on him, which ended up shocking Simon Gauge. The crowd started chanting chivalry at it, which I thought was cool. And then Simon Gauge puts Kalisto in the ring, and Kalisto hits the Salito del Sol on Simon Gauge for the win and retains the NXT Tag Team Championships. But what the fans probably didn't notice, and I didn't notice watching this match at the time, was that Kalisto had pinned the wrong person, because Adrian English was the legal man in the match. Simon Gauge was not. So obviously then this was used to set up a rematch for the NXT Tag Team Championships between the Vaudevillains and the Lucha Dragons, where the Lucha Dragons would retain the titles again. Then eventually the Vaudevillains kind of took a hiatus for a while. Eventually at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, they became the NXT Tag Team Champions. Then they lost them like a couple of months later. And then eventually in 2016, they were called up to the main roster. Ironically enough, the Vaudevillains' first match on the main roster was against the Lucha Dragons. How weird is that? And then eventually they had like one WWE Tag Team title match. They were pushed for a month, and then the WWE decided not to do anything with them, and now Simon Gauge is released, and Adrian English is pretty much a jobber on the main roster, so it's a shame what happened to the Vaudevillains. WWE really missed out on the opportunity there. And then the Lucha Dragons went on to lose, like I said, they went on to lose the NXT Tag Team titles in February of 2015. They had a few more matches in NXT, then eventually they got called up to the main roster. Well, Sin Cara got called up, Kalisto got called up, but you get what I'm saying. They didn't really do much with them. They had like a few WWE Tag Team title matches. Kalisto had probably his best spot where he ended up hitting the Salida del Sol through the ladder, which was cool. And then eventually Sin Cara ended up getting injured, so Kalisto had to go solo for a while. So then eventually Kalisto, while Sin Cara was inactive, ended up becoming a 2-time United States champion. But then they wanted Kalisto to get over and be like the next Mexican big star. But it didn't work, and they really weren't having him cut promos about. He wasn't that bad on the mic, but he wasn't that great either. Then eventually they had him drop the U.S. title. They reformed the Lucha Dragons for like a couple of weeks, but then they decided to have them split up as a team. And then Kalisto, during the draft, ended up being drafted to SmackDown. Sin Cara ended up being drafted to Raw, which was weird because you could have had the Lucha Dragons stay together as a tag team on Raw. Or since the Cruiserweight division was coming, you could have had Kalisto stay on Raw with the Cruiserweight division and Sin Cara do the same thing. Then eventually, Sin Cara floundered in the Cruiserweight division and really didn't do anything. And pretty much the same thing happened to the Kalisto. Then they finally had a chance to fix all those problems by having Kalisto get drafted to Raw, and you could have reformed the Lucha Dragons, but instead you did that, but then you drafted Sin Cara over to SmackDown during the Superstar Shakeup, which was stupid, and pretty much they jobbed out in the first matches on the brands, and it looks like Kalisto probably will be joining the Cruiserweight division, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon, and Sin Cara will continue to be a jobber. So pretty much, long-term wise, nobody benefited from this match. Short-term wise, as in becoming top tag teams at NXT, they benefited, and they got caught up on the main roster in a pretty big way, but then, yeah, it just wasn't very good for the Lucha Dragons and the Vaudevillians. But overall, I thought the match was good. Alright, so next match was Ty Dillinger versus Baron Corbin. And watching this match, what a difference in Ty Dillinger back then. Like, wow. But I'll talk about that in a second. So this was obviously, like I had said before, back at the time when Baron Corbin was very green at the time, so they wanted to keep his matches as short as they could, but it was getting over because fans would count down how long his matches would be, which was pretty cool. So that's what the fans did. Baron Corbin hits a snake eyes, a big boot, and an end of days for the win in like 30 seconds. I think it was 30 seconds. And afterwards, Baron Corbin sees that Bo Dempsey's sitting in the crowd, because at the time they were trying to push a feud between these two, because these were the two monsters of NXT. And they stare a hole right through each other. Baron Corbin's like telling to dare him to do something, but Bo Dempsey doesn't do anything. And I didn't really mind what they did with this feud too much, because it was kind of a way like to see, hey, you're about to get this feud, but we're not going to have you touch, but we're going to have them kind of hint at it. So, and they were both monsters in NXT, so it worked. And obviously they wanted to get Baron Corbin on the show. And I never got how much they used to try to pound and pound and pound Baron Corbin down your throat. Like, I talk about all the time how Roman Reigns is they try to force you to like him, and they try to pound him down your throat. Well, Baron Corbin in his early career, he was pretty much what Roman Reigns is now, except he wasn't as pounded as much. But it's just so it just reminds you so much. But obviously the aftermath came with this. Ty Dillinger, like I said, it's really weird to watch Ty Dillinger, because now he does the thing where he does the 10 thing, because he had just he really wasn't having much success, so eventually he started doing the thing where he would do the 10 chant, and eventually that got really over, and Ty Dillinger got himself massively over in NXT, and he went on to have phenomenal matches, and he was like the best babyface there. He just recently got called up to SmackDown, and he's doing alright, but he's just started out, so I mean, what are you going to do? And Baron Corbin and Bo Dempsey went on to continue their feud. They went on to have 3 matches with each other where Baron Corbin would win every time. Baron Corbin would run roughshod in NXT until eventually being called up to the main roster at WrestleMania 32, where he would go on to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. And he pretty much ran roughshod across all of the superstars on Raw. So he's done okay for himself. He hasn't really like progressed up to that level, but I think they're on the verge of putting the WWE Championship on him, so that would be interesting. So overall, fine match here. It did what it needed to do, so yeah. Okay, so next match was a tag team match. The Ascension versus Hideo Itami and Finn Balor. And obviously, the big part of this match was the entrance of Finn Balor. This was the first time ever that Finn Balor had come out dressed as the Demon. I don't know if they had called it the Demon at the time, but that's what it was. And, he came out, he was all, I don't even know what you call it, but body painted. He was wearing a demon wig, and he just looked like he entered like a dog plate. Like it was a different Finn Balor than the actual Finn, like when he actually just comes out and wrestles himself. And it's an awesome entrance. I remember seeing it at the time, marking out for it, because it's a really cool entrance. Now, obviously, this match I thought was good. I kind of wish it was a squash in a way, because that would have sent a statement that they took out the longest reigning NXT Tag Team Champions of all time. And mainly because I don't like the Ascension, so it would be kind of nice for the Ascension to get that type of send-off of NXT, because they deserve it. But that's, biased standpoints. But the match still worked. So, the Ascension even had the look on their face when Finn Balor came out, like they were all shell-shocked because they didn't expect it. And the Ascension, Balor, and Itami stopped brawling. They brawl in the corner, and Finn Balor and Hideo Itami both hit drop kicks on both members of the Ascension. The Ascension have to regroup themselves. This was all before the match started. And then Finn Balor and Connor ended up starting the match once that match actually starts. And Balor and Itami dominate the Ascension for a while. And then eventually Connor hits a flapjack on Hideo Itami, and the Ascension decimate Hideo Itami. This was when the match was kind of boring, because the Ascension actually did stuff, and when the Ascension did stuff, it was pretty boring. But they did some good tag team moves, and they did some good psychology when Itami kept trying to get tag Balor, like when he went to tag him and Connor cheap shotted him, stuff like that. Eventually, Finn Balor gets the hot tag. He goes off on Connor, and he ends up going up over Connor's back and hits a drop kick on Victor. He hits a slim blade on Connor. No, actually, he hits a slim blade on Victor. So this was all the stuff happened to Victor, and then he goes to put him away. He hits a reverse brainbuster. Connor breaks it up, and then Hideo Itami takes himself and Connor out of the ring. Finn Balor hits a flip dive on the Ascension, and then he goes to put away Victor, but Victor hits a running STO. Hideo Itami is able to break that up. Then Connor throws Hideo Itami out of the ring. The Ascension go for the Fallen Man. Hideo Itami pulls Connor out of the ring again, and then Finn Balor hits the drop kick, and then Hideo Itami hits a running drop kick. Then the Ascension are both laid out. Balor and Itami go off the top rope and hit a double diving double stomp for the win, and that was it. And I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was a good tag team match. I definitely think the Ascension were carried in this match. They were, because Itami and Balor are such great wrestlers, they were able to carry the Ascension to a good match. And obviously Finn Balor and Itami, the double dive and double stomp is now Finn Balor's finisher that he uses now, the coup de grace. And obviously the aftermath of this match is the Ascension's last match as full NXT superstars. Ended up being a rematch between Balor and Itami, where Balor and Itami were able to put them away again. And then Finn Balor went on to the Ascension went on to get caught up on the main roster and get jobbed out because they deserve it, because they absolutely suck. And then Hideo Itami and Finn Balor ended up becoming singles wrestlers. I think they wanted them to be a tag team first because they would have gotten over better that way, and I believe, in my opinion, they did. And Finn Balor went on to become a huge star in NXT. He went on to win the NXT Championship in July, and he became the longest reigning NXT champion in NXT history. Eventually, he ended up being called up to the main roster, and he defeated Roman Reigns clean in this first match, which was a huge deal because the WWE liked to protect Roman Reigns at the time. And then Finn Balor went on at SummerSlam to defeat Seth Rollins to become the first ever WWE Universal Champion in history. But he ended up having to vacate the title the next night because of his shoulder injury. He just recently came back, and now he's going to be, and he's been decently okay since he came back. But obviously, Balor has been a huge star since this match, and he's a great wrestler. Obviously, he's one on the main roster, hasn't been the best because of his injury. Hideo Itami went on to kind of have a few more matches at TakeOver. Then he ended up getting injured, and pretty much injuries have held Hideo Itami back from being a huge star. He'd probably be up on the main roster right now, but he got an injury. He ended up injuring his shoulder in 2015, and then in 2016 when he returned in 2016, and then in November of 2016. He ended up injuring his neck, but now he's back, so I'm hoping that he can finally stay healthy and become a huge star. So, overall, the aftermath, this match created, I still think Hideo Itami is a huge star in NXT. He was starting to, he was still a huge star, but he was very close to becoming like a big star, like a huge star, like a absolute, like one of the faces of NXT, because he was building up some great momentum, but, the injury got the best of him. But overall, I really enjoyed this match, and it definitely presented the future from today because he has Finn Balor, who became, like I said, the longest reigning NXT champion, first ever WWE Universal champion, and then Hideo Itami, who was slowly getting up there, and then the Ascension became a trash tag team. So, yeah, that's the reason we call the Ascension the Trash Ascension, and thank God I don't have to talk about the Ascension anymore after this. Okay, next was a Roman Reigns interview. And you can totally hear that they pumped in crowd noise, because I think when the show aired live, he got booed. But then when you watch it back now, they pumped in a bunch of crowd noise to make it sound like he was unanimously over. You could tell too, because they actually have the crowd chant before he even gets introduced. But Renee Young asked him how it feels to be the 2014 Superstar of the Year, which he should not have won. And he cuts a pretty bad promo saying that it's wonderful. He's got to do a lot of wonderful things in the WWE. And then she asked him what he's doing here tonight. He said that he's here to watch an awesome show. He's here to watch Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn for the NXT Championship. And he said that he's here to reminisce about old times in NXT. And he said that he wants to be the first ever NXT alumni to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, which didn't happen, and that honor. Now, if you're counting the NXT from this version, it's Seth Rollins. If you're counting the NXT, if you include the 2010 version to now, it's Daniel Bryan. So, obviously, Roman Reigns was not regardless, was not the first NXT alumni to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But yeah, Roman Reigns cut a pretty bad promo here. Obviously, afterwards, he ended up winning the Royal Rumble, wrestling for the title at WrestleMania, and that's where Seth Rollins cashed in and won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And eventually, Roman Reigns at Survivor Series 2015 would finally win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And they just pounded Roman Reigns down your throats. I kind of think it's funny. I didn't even remember he was on the show. How that's pretty much what they tried to do with Baron Corbin, but it didn't happen, and I kind of wish we could have had like a Baron Corbin Roman Reigns face off. So I think that would have been funny. I wonder if Roman Reigns was there in real life to, because I heard when he was injured, because he was out due to injury because he had the hernia surgery. I wonder if Roman Reigns was there because he was taking those acting classes. Just kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Next match was a NXT Women's Championship match. NXT Women's Champion Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. This match I thought was really good. Charlotte and Sasha Banks always killed it every time they get in the ring together, and it's really good here. Sasha Banks was wearing a t-shirt that was like Charlotte's, where it says, "Do it yourself and be natural selection" or something. And it says, "Be a boss," which I thought was funny. And she throws them in Charlotte's face, and Charlotte beats the crap out of her. She hits a lot of chops on her. Then eventually Sasha Banks goes out on the outside, drives Charlotte into the apron, throws her back first into the steel steps, and Sasha Banks dominates Charlotte, really works over the back of Charlotte. She ends up hitting a double knees in the corner. Like, she goes up on the second rope. She puts Charlotte up on the second rope and goes up on there herself and hits him. And then she hits a straight jacket, like back submission. It was really cool. And Charlotte kept trying to fight back, but Sasha Banks kept cutting her off, time in and time out. Then Charlotte made a comeback. She hit a suplex into a reverse neck breaker. And then eventually Sasha throws her out of the ring, hits a dive on the floor, which was awesome. And then the match just goes back and forth. Charlotte hits a spear. Sasha kicks out. She goes for a moonsault, but then Sasha moves out of the way and instead she hits a rolling senton for the low, which Sasha kicks out of again. Sasha hits a straight jacket neck breaker. Charlotte kicks out. Charlotte goes for the figure four. Sasha counters into a roll up, kick out, and then eventually the finish comes when Sasha goes for the superplex, and Charlotte's able to fight her off. And then she hits the natural selection, which is the bow down of the queen back then, off the second turnbuckle for the win. And Charlotte retains the NXT Women's Championship. At the time, I thought Sasha Banks was going to come in here and win the NXT Women's Championship, but that didn't happen. They actually had Charlotte retain the championship, which I was surprised about. But overall, I thought this match was really good, really putting over again women's wrestling. So I thought that was awesome. Then afterwards, the aftermath of this match came where Charlotte and Sasha Banks would have a few more matches for the NXT Women's Championship. But then finally at NXT Takeover Rival, Sasha Banks was able to finally defeat Charlotte in a fatal four-way match that included Bayley and Becky Lynch to finally win the NXT Women's Championship. And Charlotte would have a rematch where Sasha Banks would win again. Then Sasha Banks would go on to have a pretty good run with the NXT Women's title. Then she ended up dropping into to Bayley at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. And afterwards, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch ended up getting called up to the main roster. And now the feud's pretty much still continuing now because Sasha Banks and Charlotte have gone on to done some great things on the main roster. They had a great women's championship match at WrestleMania 32 that also included Becky Lynch in a triple threat match. Sasha Banks beat Charlotte to win her first women's championship. They had a match at SummerSlam. They were in the first main event of Raw since 2005. They were for women wrestlers anyway. Then they were in the first ever Hell in a Cell match where Charlotte was able to win the title. What else? Charlotte. Then they were in the first ever Falls Count Anywhere match. Then they were in the first ever, on the main roster anyways, Iron Man match. But Sasha Banks in real life was in the first ever Iron Woman match when she faced Bayley in her last match at NXT TakeOver Respect. And then they ended up being in a fatal Charlotte Flair. Well, Charlotte, her name is now Charlotte Flair, and Charlotte ended up having a pay-per-view record that went up to like 15-0, I believe. Her pay-per-view record ended up ending at Fastlane, where Charlotte lost because of Sasha Banks. And then at WrestleMania, they fought in a fatal four-way match that included Bayley and I forget who else. at WrestleMania 33, and pretty much now Charlotte's on SmackDown, Sasha Banks is on Raw, so they're not really going to be feuded with each other for a while. But ever since this match, Sasha Banks and Charlotte are like the top two women on the roster. Sasha Banks is a 3-time Raw Women's Champion, and I believe Charlotte's a 4-time Raw Women's Champion, a former Divas Champion, and a former NXT Women's Champion. So she's the only one to ever hold the NXT, the Divas, and the Women's Championship. That's really impressive. And now Charlotte's on the verge of becoming the SmackDown Women's Champion, and Sasha Banks looks like she's going to be feuding with Bayley for the Raw Women's Championship very soon. So overall, I would say both people benefited from this match. This match was really good. It really defined women's wrestling, so no complaints here. Okay, so then we had the main event. It was a title versus career match. Sami Zayn's career versus Adrian Neville's NXT Championship. And this match was phenomenal. Probably the best built-up match on the show, and my favorite match on the show. So let me talk about it. So what I liked about this match, this was the first time that the wrestlers in the main event came out through the locker room, and then they would actually make their entrance. And I like it when they do that. It's like because it makes it feel like a big deal. It's like it's a boxing match. It showed Sami Zayn coming from the locker room, and then it showed Adrian Neville coming from the locker room. Just kind of little touches like that can really add to the match. I liked how they showed them working out and really hyped up this match throughout the show. And then we had the match itself, and Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville at first don't really do anything. The crowd's going nuts for Sami Zayn. They're really behind him. And then they chain wrestle each other, and Adrian Neville's pretty much kind of out wrestling Sami Zayn, hitting in a lot of headlocks, get him into a lot of arm drags. And then eventually Sami Zayn hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker on Neville, and then he hits a which knocks him out of the ring. Then he hits a like a Starship Pain outside the ring on Neville, and Neville's debated whether he should get back in the ring or not, and eventually he decides to, because he could have just walked out of the match and lose by count out. And Neville starts to dominate Sami Zayn. He attacks him with clotheslines, the drop kick to the back of the head, the missile drop kick from the top rope, and he really starts to ground Sami Zayn. I thought this was awesome. Neville was just trying to take away all of Sami Zayn's momentum. But Sami Zayn continuously fights back. Sami Zayn fights back with the right hand, and he just really uses the passion of the crowd. And then the two wrestlers just really start going at each other. Sami Zayn and Neville start trading punches back and forth at each other. And Sami Zayn starts to hit his comeback. He hits a wicked clothesline on Neville. Then he hits a lifted drop kick. Then he hits goes for the flip dive on the outside. Neville takes him out, throws him out of the ring. And he goes for a dive. Sami Zayn throws him, pulls down the top rope, and he hits a flip dive on the outside. He hits a high cross body on Neville. Neville kicks out. And the match just really goes back and forth. Sami Zayn goes for a power bomb. Neville counters into a roll up. And Neville and Sami Zayn just start going toe to toe. Neville hits a kick to a clothesline and a shooting star press splash. What else happens in this match? Sami Zayn gets him into an electric chair and turns it into the Blue Thunder Bomb. That was awesome. Neville hits a kick to the head, Nitsuguri on Zayn, and then he goes for the Red Arrow. Zayn gets the knees up, gets him into the Koji clutch, but Neville's able to get the ropes. what else? Neville hits a 6 suplex on Zayn. And then the storyline of the element starts to come into play in this match. So I believe Neville hit, Sami Zayn would hit a roll up on Neville. Neville kicked out of it, and then Sami Zayn ended up going into the official. This distracts Sami Zayn. He's trying to make sure the official's okay. And this is kind of like a thing where Sami Zayn makes these mistakes. His morals can get the best of him. So then Neville hits a super kick and a reverse Frankensteiner. But Sami Zayn's able to still kick out of it. You thought Sami Zayn was going to lose. And then Sami Zayn starts to go on fire. He hits the blue Thunder Bomb. Well, actually, Neville even hit a sit out power bomb. And then eventually Sami Zayn hits a clothesline again. He hits a 2 German suplexes and a reverse exploder suplex. He goes for the haluva kick. Neville rolls out of the ring. And then Sami Zayn hits a DDT through the turnbuckle on Neville on the outside. He goes for the haluva kick. Neville pulls the official in the way and ends up taking out. And Neville takes out Zayn and the official. He takes out more of the official. So Sami Zayn realizes he messed up because the official was knocked out. Neville grabs the NXT Championship and he's about to hit Zayn over the head with it, but Zayn is able to fight him off, takes him down with a clothesline, and Sami Zayn grabs the title, and he has the perfect chance to turn heel and just clobber Neville off the head with the championship. He's second-guessing himself. He's deciding whether or not he would do it or not. And I think the WWE put this in to kind of tease us for it, and I like that they did this because they actually made us worry that Sami Zayn was going to do it, but Sami Zayn has too much morals. But this allows Neville to catch a roll-up on Zayn. Zayn's able to kick out, and then Zayn hits an exploder suplex in the corner, and then he hits the haluva kick, and Sami Zayn gets the victory and finally becomes the NXT champion. And that was just an awesome moment because Sami Zayn had fought to finally get that big victory. You know, he had always come this close, and he was that ultimate underdog. And this is kind of an example of just because a guy loses all the time, as long as they lose with a purpose, then it makes sense. And that's exactly what happened with Sami Zayn. He always would come this close. Because think about it, if Sami Zayn just won all his matches, he wouldn't really be much of an underdog. And that's what NXT did. And you know, this, and you wouldn't have had this feel-good moment had Sami Zayn just won the NXT Championship his first time in. And Sami Zayn's just celebrating, and it's a really feel-good moment. The locker room clears out and congratulates Sami Zayn. The first guy you see out there is Kevin Owens, and he hugs Sami Zayn, and he still and his nose is still broken from his match with CJ Polka. And who else is now out there? None other than former WWE Hall of Famer, I should say. Former and first ever Intercontinental Champion, Pat Patterson, which was kind of a cool moment to see him. Sami Zayn reacted. The whole locker room picks up Sami Zayn over his shoulders. And confetti starts to come down. It's a real feel-good moment. It's a big celebratory moment for Sami Zayn. And yeah. Sami Zayn came out looking like the ultimate underdog. He finally prevailed. It was just like when Daniel Bryan won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 30. It's like, you know, when you have the big underdog finally win the title, and it's an awesome moment. Then afterwards, Adrian Neville gets to his feet. And Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn Adrian Neville, you don't really know what he's going to do here because he's been kind of acting like heelish. And Sami Zayn offers his hand out to shake Neville's hand, but Neville kicks it away. And you think he's going to, and I thought when I saw this at the time he was going to turn heel, but instead he decides to hug Sami Zayn and he raises his hand as the new NXT champion. And he takes off. And the whole locker room clears out, and Sami Zayn still celebrates. Now, obviously, I'll just kind of say what happened with the aftermath. Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn would have a rematch for the title, where Sami Zayn would retain the championship, and then Adrian Neville would have his final match at NXT against Kevin Owens, and then he had his final takeover against Finn Balor, which I'll talk about next. And then he finally, after the night after WrestleMania 31, debuted on Raw. They shortened his name to Neville for some reason. He did pretty okay in his first year. He stole the show. He nearly beat WWE World Heavyweight Champion at the time, Seth Rollins. And he, was a guy they had on the undercard, but they didn't really do much with him. Then eventually he got injured and missed WrestleMania 32. Neville came back, and they still kind of didn't do anything to him. And now Neville is the face of the Cruiserweights division. He has this big heel turn, and he's now running roughshod in the Cruiserweight division, which is awesome. Something I kind of wish, something I was kind of thinking watching this is, can you imagine if they had done this storyline with this Neville right now, the Neville that's a heel, and Sami Zayn, they would have worked perfectly. And it makes me kind of wonder, I know I kind of wish Sami Zayn was 205 pounds. He was still on Raw, you have that problem. But I really wish you could have done a Sami Zayn Neville feud for the Cruiserweight Championship. Because they have the history from this match, they have the history from NXT, and it would work so perfectly, and they would steal the show at WrestleMania for the Cruiserweight title. But it's a shame. And I hope, as much as I love Neville right now, and I think he's doing great work as a heel, I gotta be honest with you, this is probably my favorite version of Adrian Neville. Just because he was on the top of his game, he was having classic matches, and he still is now, but I think, what I would like to see this version of Adrian Neville. Yes, where he's kind of a baby face, but he has a little instances where he was a heel like you. I like this I like Adrian Neville when he was in NXT. Is my favorite time of Adrian Neville, when he was in NXT from 2014 to 2015. That's my favorite one of Adrian Neville's career. But that beats that. So then afterwards, Sami Zayn celebrating with the championship, and you see his best friend Kevin Owens, and he walks away with the title, and obviously everybody knows the story. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were best friends for years. They had dreamed to finally get into the WWE. They had feuded all over the world in Ring of Honor, and other wrestling companies, and everyone would wondered what would happen if they were both in WWE. And then it happens. Kevin Owens slams Sami Zayn down on the ramp, and then he power bombs him into the apron and just completely takes out Sami Zayn. And it was really cool how it happened, because the commentators were signing off the show, and the little thing comes up that tells you where to go on the website and stuff. And then Kevin Owens just does it right at the end of the show. And William Regal shows up, and he's all pissed about it, and Sami Zayn has to be helped, or he has to be stretched out and stuff, and it was definitely... what was such a great moment turned into a nightmare for Sami Zayn. So I love this moment. This led to a lot of things in NXT. This led to the great Sami Zayn Kevin Owens feud. Kevin Owens would say that he did this because he's a prize fighter, and he wants to fight for the title, and he wants to he wants to provide for his family. So Sami Zayn wanted to have Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship at NXT Takeover Rival. Kevin Owens would go on to take out Sami Zayn again and win the NXT Championship. And the feud and Kevin Owens would pretty much run roughshod in NXT. He would take everybody out. He took out Adrian Neville. He ended up taking out Finn Balor for a short stint of time. Hideo Itami, possibly. It's questionable. I'll talk about that when I get to that episode. So Kevin Owens was running roughshod in NXT. He even, I would argue, made NXT huge in 2015, because he was coming to Monday Night Raw with the title. He was defending the title on Raw and SmackDown. He defeated the NXT champion, defeated John Cena at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in 2015. Everybody was talking about, the NXT. I think not because of Kevin Owens, there was other factors at play, but Kevin Owens had a huge part in the rise of NXT. It rose, he made, And definitely having that promotion from the main roster helps. And then eventually, Sami Zayn would get taken out again in NXT Takeover Unstoppable. He would return and Sami Zayn would have a couple of more months down in NXT, because by the time Sami Zayn had returned, Kevin Owens was already on the main roster. He would finish his story down in NXT, and then Sami Zayn debuted. They put this feud on the main roster. Sami Zayn debuted in the Royal Rumble, eliminated Kevin Owens from the match, cost him the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and then they were in a multi-man ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania 32. And then they blew off their feud. They wrestled at Payback, where Kevin Owens would prevail. And then they would begin a Fatal 4-Way match at Extreme Rules for the Intercontinental Championship. At Money in the Bank, they would be in the Money in the Bank match together. And then they finally blew off the feud, at least, for good, at Battleground, where Sami Zayn was finally able to defeat Kevin Owens. And they still have matches today where it's Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. It's like they're destined to fight forever, because they both ended up getting drafted to Raw. And then during the Superstar Shakeup, both of them ended up going to SmackDown. So, yeah. And, they still kind of continue that feud. Kevin Owens turned, and so that's where kind of that went. And you needed to have Kevin Owens turn on Sami Zayn, because of the problem that we have with these underdog storylines is once the underdog gets to the title reign usually isn't anything special. See kind of Daniel Bryan in 2014. They didn't really do much with him as a champion. Well, one, he got injured, so that didn't help. But his first title feud was with Kane. So you needed to give Sami Zayn some interest, and Kevin Owens was that perfect person to give that interest to. I mean, look at Bayley when she just recently won the Raw Women's title. Her title reign was awful. Well, no, it wasn't awful, but it didn't really feel like it was anything special. And Kevin Owens, gave Sami Zayn kind of like a way where he could still look like an underdog, and he could still have a incredible title reign. And that's what happened. And Kevin Owens pretty much went from being like the big baby face in the beginning of the show. Everyone loved Kevin Owens, and then everybody turned on him once he turned on Sami Zayn, and it was perfect. And I think I meant to mention this. I wanted to mention this here. I think that's what happened to Bo Dempsey. They wanted to make him the monster, but then Kevin Owens came, and they say, no, why don't we make him the monster? It's going to work better with him. So I think Bo Dempsey was definitely a victim of circumstance. So it kind of sucked to be Bo Dempsey. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. For this part, anyways. I guess I'll end off the video. Let me just talk about what I thought about the show. Let me give you my star ratings for each match. So for the Kevin Owens CJ Parker match, I'm going to rate that 2 stars. The match isn't anything special, but the debut of Kevin Owens is really cool, and it is hard-hitting and stuff, and it does what it needs to do in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. The NXT Tag Team Championship match is probably 2 stars. It's a good match, but and then the singles match between Baron Corbin and Ty Dillinger, I'm just going to give that a star and a half. Just a squash. The tag team match, I'm going to give 3 stars. That's actually a good match and a good showcase for Finn Balor and Hideo Itami. The NXT Women's Championship match is a 4-star match. And then the title versus career match, the NXT Championship match, is a 4.5-star match. That's just a great match. So let me say it again. Owens and Parker is 2.5 stars. NXT Tag Team Championship match is 2 stars. The Corbin Ty Dillinger match is 1 star. The tag team match is 3 stars. The NXT Women's Championship match is 4 stars, and the NXT Championship match is 4.5 stars. So overall, though, I actually really enjoyed this episode. This NXT Takeover special. It's an awesome episode. Well, let me say, it's an awesome special. I think that after this is when I really became interested in NXT. I, like I said, always liked NXT. But once I watched this show, I was like interested in watching NXT every week. And I still kind of feel that way. You know, there's kind of really, I loved watching NXT. It was like my favorite thing WWE wise to watch. Yeah, I think this show kind of helps grow NXT. It definitely feels special, you know. They had that big video package in the beginning I forgot to talk about, where they talk about my evolution, and you could kind of see the evolution. This started the push for Finn Balor. You know, you have future stars on the show like Finn Balor, who became the longest reigning NXT champion, Kevin Owens, who, you know, became NXT champion. Kevin Owens is now is now a two-time Intercontinental champion. He beat John Cena his first night in the WWE on the main roster. He is a former WWE Universal Champion and the longest reigning WWE Universal Champion in history. He's now a two-time and current United States Champion. So Kevin Owens became a huge star coming out of this show. Sami Zayn, you know, now Neville's a strong mid-card guy. Who else is Kalisto has been a two-time United States champion. But a lot of stars come out of this show. You know, a lot of stars from NXT. Charlotte and Sasha Banks obviously are huge stars now. So overall, if I had to rate the show, I'm probably going to rate it a 8 out of 10. It's just, I think, a good show. A really good show. I really enjoy it. You know, it's a really good show. For wrestling wise, if you kind of want to, you know, watch it, because a lot of these matches actually aren't too bad to watch, but I also watch for the characters and the story. And, you know, my match of the night on the show is definitely the Sami Zayn Adrian Neville match, because of the story being told in the match and the actual match itself. So overall, guys, that's pretty much it. Please make sure to subscribe to CM Brothers, Owen the Talkinator, and this channel to get some content. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.